Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is me, Aurora, Flamingo Lasagna. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Apologies to anybody who is an enrolled student in this class who receives my email invites. Pardon me, just treadmill in here, because I swear to you, I sent out the Zoom link in the email, and technological gremlins they ate the link and did something naughty. So I did send it out just before this class. Please forgive me. And if something like that ever happens, please, you guys know that these types of things happen. Okay. So focusing, and it happens because it's like the most important stuff that I can be here sharing. And so the powers that were would certainly like to be like, let's just make sure that nobody sees this meeting or whatever. So make sure people see this meeting. All right, good. This one is the sun's senses and the human endocannabinoid system. And then also there's a part two about Ascension. So please know that this is not simply me speaking about some kind of a devotion that I have to a recreational substance of intoxication. There are very intentional reasons why cannabis is so important to me or to the human body and to really the structure of the entire world. Like the fabric of reality, the world of pure light, your connection to the sun, the stars, and divinity. So it is really not a substance that is equitable to any other substance in your world, although I know that there are many, many other substances that people eat, substances that people manufacture, strange mutated molecules and other things like that. Please know that I place cannabis and interpret cannabis in a completely different category than that. I could go on a whole 3 hour long gird your loins rant about white hot rant about the origins of human civilization and how it is all based upon cannabis plant in terms of using its seed and its oil and its fiber. But the main takeaway from all of that, instead of me giving you a botanical, agricultural walk through human history, is to recognize that the human endocannabinoid system is requiring certain nutritional substrates that make your neurology a two-way highway as opposed to a unidirectional highway. That even humans' conception of what is the sun and what is your relationship with the sun has been extremely skewed and limited by the lack of cannabis in your diet. It has given the researchers or viewpoint creators, like the scientists or the people who create worldviews in your world, a limited view of what is happening in your relationship with light. The people who are starved of cannabis see the sun and they say, light originates from the sun and it flows from there to me. Boom. That's it. That's the end. Pardon me while I hydrate. And also in this class, and I'm going to talk a lot about my Path of Light class too, take the Path of Light class. The word light can always be replaced with consciousness or intelligence or awareness. So another way of saying this is through the objective materialist science on the surface of Earth, it appears that light flows from information, intelligence, consciousness, awareness flows from the sun to the human. And then that's it. Like that's the objective materialist viewpoint. And this is also this viewpoint of like what happens to your consciousness upon death. There's a lot of things about the fear of death and a lot of things about the afterlife. Oh my goodness, my sculpture is all the way over here. Let me go grab my sculpture because I have to talk about the membrane of death, the pooties, and the interstices. Please forgive me. Let me get it over here. I always put it over here because it's very fragile. Okay, good. After class, I just put it on its little pedestal because it's so fragile. Okay, but membrane of death. And this is the teaching where I also share with you about how basically the membrane of death or the interstices and the central core timeline are very analogous to what has been mythologized and religiousified in the human world as hell and heaven. So this area here, this swooping area here, that is the membrane of death and is meant to be a transit point, not a place where consciousness resides. but in this class we recognize and can speak can speak articulately about the putis, those pesky occupiers of the interstices. And I will always give a hat tip to Pedro, who came up with that cute little analogy for us, because that's a fun and lighthearted term to describe what is colloquially known in your world as demons. That is correct. And of course, the membrane of death is comprised of three basic types of consciousness and consciousness residues. One has never been embodied, and that is like the most pure evil garbage of the world. One has been embodied, but made horrible, horrible choices, like the guys on Mars, and then ended up in some kind of quantum indeterminacy, like blasting themselves into a million, pieces of unresolved crapola smeared on the membrane of death and still unresolved after all of this time. And then those are the guys that we call the putis. They're the consciousness vampires who are really draining life for, or have up until this point, use better language, but we are fighting against them, destroying it today, have been draining life force energy from the living. Those are all the people that are still in this area of the time field, the area where you're moving through time. And that represents the economy of hell. And it also can speak to a lot of the macro structures in your world, such as the economy, the invention of money, the invention of structures of society, a lot of aspects of the caste system of your society, what I call the game of musical chairs, luge harvesting. I'm kind of doing shorthand here because you guys are all members of this class and advanced jazz band. You're like, wait, I know this song. Okay, take it from the top. Definitely. All of these consciousness residues that engineer situations for those of us who are trying to live as our most divine self, to not only take us off of our path, but or to dilute our behavior, or even to hijack our behavior, especially with something like a transhumanist form of technology, taking your willpower away from you and then trying to make you less of yourself as a way of somehow feeding or serving the motivations, agendas, or desires of something that is an insane echo of a consciousness that once existed but never existed. And then wait, I haven't finished this. There's a third thing that is on the membrane of death, and that's good people who died, who did the wrong calculations, who sometimes got like horribly beset by these demons, who dragged them over the cliff, or blinded them and diluted them, or helped them to just self-destruct and make terrible life choices, or who simply were exploring the wrong notes of life and end up on the membrane of death, and then who are in the process of learning. Like I joke about getting your assessment, your life assessment, your clipboard. It's going to tell you the things that you did wrong, the math that you did wrong, the places where you could have changed and upgraded your trajectory, and then finally, good people are like, okay, great. Now that I know all this stuff, I wish I had another chance, and get reinserted. Some people are bitter about this. They're like, I don't like this, and the cycling, and wrong note playing. And I'm like, I agree. Actually, this is not the original intended functionality of this system. It's a very dysfunctional system, and I am here to change it. And a lot of the conversation, like if you read my notes, there's a lot that I have in my physical copy here. I'm like, oh, I need to challenge that. I need to clarify that. So there's a lot of things that need to be clarified in light of who and what we are right now, we're going through right now, but that might have been more valid when I wrote them a long time ago. But then there are also some other things that are like ripe for misinterpretation. And so I have to clarify that. But at the very, very end of my notes, if you read through all of these pages, it really is about resolving good versus evil. The level of reality that you're coming out of. Indigo, Christ chakra, Pisces age, pissing on age, the age of good versus evil and conflict and dynamics and interaction and thing versus thing and contrast. And in order to evolve from the indigo chakra to the violet chakra and be like the perfect, divinely connected, flying rainbow lasagna version of yourself, it does not mean that you compromise and integrate into yourself stuff that is evil and garbage. That is not the resolution. It's not the kumbaya, hug a demon, oh, we're all friends now type of feeling. It is a purging of the system of anything that is evil. You resolve good and evil, not by simply pretending. blithely lobotomizing yourself and being like, that's all fine. It's not evil. That's that meme of the dog drinking coffee when the world is burning down. This is fine. That is not what you do. When you do flying rainbow lasagna, you confront evil. You address the existence of evil. Or here I'm using evil as a catchword for a definition of stuff that shouldn't exist. And then what do you do with that stuff that shouldn't exist? She'd be like, you're naughty. Or like, put it in a lake of fire. Tell it it's naughty for forever. Like, it doesn't fix anything. This is why I have been invented, or why the cosmic infrastructure has augmented itself to include me, flying rainbow lasagna, because I actually solved this problem. You send that stuff to entropy. And I always point to this, and your mind might simplify and think like, oh, there's one place that is energy and there's one place that is entropy. But please know that this is a simplification. Just use it as a symbol structure. Really, entropy is in a lot of directions. And there's a lot of garbage. And it can go to entropy in abundant different directions. But this is not the same as the flawed light worker who is hoping to go to the 5D smoothie shop, who encounters some friction with evil and then is like, send it back to the source or send it to the light or something like that. This is not that, because we're talking about consciousnesses or people who are so flawed that they can never accelerate to the point of speed of light. You cannot send them to light, because if you did that, you would go broke. You would use up all of the energy that you have in the world to try to accelerate something that can never accelerate. Because what we're talking about are energetic debts that are accrued behaviorally. This is where it gets confusing for you on an anthropomorphic level, but when you look at it from the violet level, it all becomes very, very clear. When you do certain things, you get energetic debts. Like, you could think of it and in an analogy, like things that bring you down or weigh you down. And then other things that you do or other behaviors or activities accelerate you. And some of the stuff that is friction creating and weighing you down, those are all the things, the bad math, you got it. Because you just I have to give you a ton of praise because I'm telepathic with you as a class, and a lot of you jump ahead, and I don't even have to say the words. You're like, oh, that's that bad math. I'm like, yes, bad math, ka-chunka. Let's go on to the next thing. So good job. You're definitely recognizing the behaviors and the type of behaviors, because it's not simply a moralism, and it's not a self-centered or whimsical moralism. Like, everybody who is just like me, everybody who wears a red shirt is okay. Everybody else I will behead. Like, the real effort here is finding an empirical moralism, which is beyond any level of human philosophy. You guys know that I'm already diving into pop culture here. We're not even at the end of class, but it's a good analogy. I like that show a lot. That's called The Good Place. It's like my show that I watch while I'm eating dinner or need like a mental break or whatever. And I know I tell you not to eat while you watch TV, but sometimes I'm as bad as anyone, in case you just know that. So when I need a fun mental break or whatever, when I'm winding down for bed or something like that. And The Good Place is a good show because it explores a lot of these philosophical concepts of what it is to be a good person. The show is, of course, written from the perspective of humans who studied human philosophy, not from the perspective of a galactic walk-in, which is why it is fascinating and educational for me to watch that show and to consider the viewpoint of people that wrote that show. They wrote that show. One of the characters is a philosophy professor who is tortured by his many inner conflicts because he's trying to intellectually assess what's the right thing to do in any moment. Like, as if there's a recipe. And he's read many, many books, and all the different books tell him, like, this is the right thing. No, this is the right thing. Then there's also the larger system that the characters of the show find themselves within. And that is an abstract system beyond human philosophy that assigns a point total to all abstract behaviors, like eating an apple, +3, killing someone, -5,000. Like, and then at the end of your life, you'll have some kind of point total that will determine the trajectory of your consciousness. Like, I am looking at that as like, I mean, I don't want to sound condescending, as like, a very quaint and humorous viewpoint or reductionist way of trying to comprehend something that I understand from the intellectual, rational, human viewpoint, almost incomprehensible. So just hold all of your assertions or considerations lightly and know that as you accelerate and as you abstractify and get out of your human viewpoint, this will all you will look at things in a more comprehensive way, and you will comprehend things in a more comprehensive way as you have more access to all of this viewpoint. So in a lot of ways, making moral structures that are across the board, unilateral, that apply to everyone equally, is not correct. And what you have to do is be an actual literate, finely tuned musician to know what is correct in each moment. And this also relates very much to each one of you in this class. As you're wondering, what's the solution for these pooties? Like, I'm going to jump around a lot in my notes, but basically the end resolution of what I want to talk about is how do we resolve the pooties? What does this look like? The next chapter of humanity does not include a compensation for and a constant inner rebalancing in response to these booties. The next chapter of humanity is who you are when you're not constantly compensating for this ballast, for these out of balance, unresolved consciousnesses. The next chapter of humanity includes a resolution of all of this crap, and then the capacity to move into, more clarity and more frictionless bliss. Because I'm sorry, when I said the resolution of all this crap, something wanted me to say the resolution of like a song lyric. I didn't want to get drawn aside from that. Sorry about that. I didn't try not to use bad language. That's why that word came in. I was like, no, I'm not going to sing a song. Okay. So first, let's start off with the sun's heliosphere, which is exactly the same shape as all of this. You and your body are literally a tiny fractal microcosmic template of the larger sun, and you and the sun are one. I speak to you, people that are in this class, not the detritus or the echoes, I would say echoes of past failures, or the fragments or pooties or anything like that. Because we recognize that, some people in this world that we share, or up until this point, have been influenced by them. Some people in this world are insane or emotionally imbalanced, or they have all these different problems, or they're basically one of the peripheral selves from a energy state that has been pulled aside by the presence of these unresolved emotional difficulties. And I'm speaking to you as people who are efforting to put yourselves into this position, or who already are a long way of the way there. Part of this journey, going from sideways up to here, is the journey of resolving your own inner emotional baggage. I don't have a better word because it's baggage, things that aren't digested, things you simply haven't learned from or enzymatically unlocked, but it's also trauma. And trauma is not something that you have to learn from. It's just a frozen moment. So now that we talk about long distance cardio stuff, I'm walking on a treadmill, guys. This is normal for me. So first of all, I really want to be in recognition and not ableist or too focused on my own abilities. I know that people have different types of bodies, people have all sorts of different pathways to their greatness. So please know that I share from the experience of my own body, and this is not unilateral. Everybody has their own journey. That being said, there are very many different ways to be able to bring forward and resolve your own inner emotional blockages. What are pooties? Pooties are emotional blockages of the sun and the stars stuck on the membrane of death. They're not supposed to be there. Something went terribly wrong. The sun is constantly emitting these narratives, take a path of light class. And also, I'm going to give you a new structure about how you have a relationship with light, because once you heal your endocannabinoid system, either by ingesting psychoactive cannabis or drinking it raw, which is not psychoactive but will help to make your neurology work correctly, you no longer only turn in the accumulated events of your life at the end of your life, you talk to the sun in real time. So many, many thousands of years of consciousness suppression and past whatever couple of hundred years of taking cannabis out of the human food supply have made it so that when you go through your life while you're supposed to be in a real-time rapport between you and the sun, like here's the big giant body, then here's a little tiny body. Here's the big giant self, here's the little tiny self. Here's the little cell that is talking to the larger self. Here's the boots on the ground or the direct experiencer talking to the larger multifaceted abstraction. But that's supposed to happen in real time so that way, if you're having a problem, this aspect of yourself, the higher, more expansive aspect of yourself, can be like, oh, let me rewrite the narrative. You're heading towards the membrane of death. Something bad is going to happen. Let me rewrite the narrative for you because we have to presume self-love. Like the sun is like, hey, I'm you and you're me, and I don't want you to drive your car over a cliff. So when you drive your car over a cliff, you get to the end of your life, you turn in your hard drive. Where's my hard drive? Here, this is my newest one that has force majeure on it. So I'm like, okay, here's all my music. Okay, I just drove my car over a cliff. This is fictional now. I just drove my car over a cliff, and here's all my life experiences, and I turn it into the sun and the solar stellar network, which I'm calling the stellarium. And I'm like, here's all my life experiences, and the sun is like, wait, we should do it like this. Okay. Okay, thanks for all that information. Well, that is great. You led an extraordinary life. However, I wish that instead of giving this to me at the end of your life, that you would give this to me every day. I wish that I knew about what was going on with you. I would have optimized your existence. I would have optimized your body, optimized your metabolism. You would have been still alive biologically, cellularly, totally kicking butt, and you wouldn't have driven your car over a cliff as I would have told you it's going to happen. We made different choices. Okay? We are really designed in our physical body. So that's the end of the fictional, cartoonish mental thing. We are really designed in our bodies to be constantly connected to the sun. And so that's through the sun gazing practices that I try, the disciplines that I try to encourage people to do. Sun gazing not only is about the metabolic support of your circadian rhythm and the health of your mitochondria, as it is presented by many reductionist human scientists, where they're like, yep, like get fit, get lean, get yourself out there in the sun. And I'm like, yes, like this will happen too. And also we're talking about your life experiences through the genetic distortions at the level of yellow, the implantation of the verbalized mind and many other distractions and frequency assaults in the world. It is very hard for people to talk to the sun all the time. You got to effort. And then also you got a flying rainbow lasagna, because flying rainbow lasagna allows you to supersede the genetic limitations that made it so that the sun couldn't hear you. Because please note, you love the sun loves you. You are one and the same. Want to talk to yourself. Think about you and your big toe. You're like, I want to be able to talk to my foot. I want to know what's going on down there, even though it's far away from my brain. I want to feel what's happening because I use my big toe to walk around and do stuff on the ground, do all these important things. So please note that the sun is not blithely unaware or uncaring. Like, deal with your life. I wave my diamonds at you. Like, fix your own stuff. No, the sun totally cares about you. But you might have felt very abandoned in your life or through your many rotational incarnations where you're like, does anybody care? Why am I doing this? Why did I keep driving off a cliff? Why am I Groundhog Daying it? What's going on? And then, because then you turn in your hard drive and then the sun is like, oh, well, here's a problem. Like when you get the plumber in and he's like, here's a problem. You got this stuck over here and you got this stuck over here. Now get back in there, kid, and fix it up and do it better. Very wearing on the soul and not the intention for how you are supposed to live your life, because you're supposed to live your life in a constant rapport with the sun and the entire star system, and to be able to redirect what your path is. So not just see clearly that you're going to go over a cliff, but to redirect that path. And then the ultimate is flying rainbow lasagna, which is where you're literate. You can clearly see the future, read the options on the menu. You're connected to the sun, and you don't like any of the options on the menu. You're like, I like any of these options on the menu. Time to flying rainbow lasagna, write a new recipe, write a new potential, and then make a new timeline, and then go down that time route. So what we're talking about here is very deep, profound stuff about the blockages in the cosmic infrastructure. When you interact with friction and insane people and narcissistic or pathogenic people in the world, they are direct analogs of the percolation or the how it proliferates through the system, the insanity of the system, the unhealed aspects of the system. There's problems in the system. The system is not perfect. We are here perfecting the system. Take our Path of Light class. That's a lot of what I talk about. So now I know I'm jumping around so much. Let me hydrate more, but we're going to talk about Path of Light and what the sun is doing in perfecting the system. The unidirectional model says my hand is the sun, and then light goes like an arrow from here and goes off infinitely in one direction. Of course, the light might bounce off of an object, or it might come to be consumed by an object, or it might, in other ways, slow its speed or become matter or change. It might have an interaction, or it might just go on for forever. But there is not the objective materialist expectation that it will somehow come back to the sun. But if I say the instead of the light, like the optical light, what if I say the story, the intelligence? I'm trying to emphasize it. You can hear the italics in my voice. The awareness, the information. The information comes from the sun, and then it goes off on its journey. And then the information is actually supposed to come back to the sun. So the scientists who told you that information only goes in one direction, mostly in their own bodies, only had neurological signals that only went one direction because most of them never ate cannabis. All right. So cannabis is cannabis is a necessary workaround to help your body to be connected to the sun, even in this world where being matter is is inherently part of the deceleration or the disconnection from the world of light. So now we're going to talk about, I know it's science talk, but it's your neurology and the way that nerves transmit information. There's a gap that they have to jump across. You have a neural impulse that is coming from your brain, from brain down to the end of the nerve. And then it gets to the end, and it's like an electrical impulse or a piece of energy. And this is like the Grand Canyon. This synapse, this gulf that it must jump across is enormous. It is not able to go across as just an energy impulse. So what it does is turns itself into a type of chemical molecular cavalcade, and it goes molecules, 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 and it gets to the other side of the nerves, and then it reconstitutes itself as a type of impulse, and then it goes back on its merry way, and then it does eventually reach its destination, which is your big toe, and then your big toe does send signals to your brain and say, hey, I'm feeling something down here, this is what I'm feeling. Sometimes those signals that it sends are pain signals. And the big toe is saying, hey, I hit the coffee table and it really hurts down here. Something is really not okay. And the reason why humans experience pain relief effect when they take psychoactive cannabis is because it stops those signals from going upstream. I have it written in my notes much better. I will search for it laboriously in a moment. But basically, instead of those signals always going through, the cannabis goes into that synaptic cleft and it says, I don't need to hear these pain signals. It mitigates signals throughout the body. So that makes it basically possible to have better connection between the brain and the extremities. Sometimes the brain says, thank you, big toe. I have heard the pain signals. You can stop telling me the ow signal now. And sometimes the brain needs to hear a signal that it was not able to hear. So now let me see if I can find it, because it is about the flooding. I have it written so well. The carrying information with it. The flooding. Oh my goodness. Sometimes it's so hard. Thank you. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Well, anyway, see if you can read my notes. How terrible. I'm a terrible teacher. Like, I can't actually find this for you, but just read it. It's in there somewhere. Like terrible, terrible, terrible. No, but I wrote it very effectively about the signals that are sometimes dry, like in a riverbed, sometimes flooding. That is the essence of the biomechanical cellular dysfunction that is in the human body. That is not just the end result of inflammation, it is the origin of inflammation. Like the reason why your big toe gets inflamed is because it's like, hello, I'm saying something is not okay. Is anybody listening? I think I'm going to get inflamed and show you that everything is not okay. So again, I can go into my whole white hot diatribe about the agricultural history and how cannabis used to be a part of the human diet, and also post World War II, how it was taken out of the human diet and how it needs to return. And basically, cannabis used to be used as part of silage or animal feed, and it was in milk and the eggs and the meat. And then modern farming practices stopped that. And so now what I do and what I encourage other people to do is make a concerted effort to grow your own organic, non-genetically modified cannabis, and then also either blend it into smoothies or put it through like a slow masticating juicer. That's what I do with something like apples, ginger, lemon, and that tastes very delicious. And then when my garden is abundant, I freeze that as cubes. And then if it's winter time or I don't have fresh plants or whatever, I will use those cubes and I'll try to take some every day. So I've been doing this literally for 10 years. And I did that very intentionally as part of healing my brain, using it as an anti-seizure like substance in my body, using it for anti-inflammation because a lot of seizures and neurological difficulties come from inflammation, and also using it for like I would say mental, emotional, energetic stability and uplift and wellness. The smoothies are not psychoactive, although I do use psychoactive cannabis. And I think that that is also another thing to talk about here and to remove the stigma in any way, because I'm just a huge proponent of this. But of course, I would wish for everyone to be responsible in the way that they use it. And of course, you know, responsible in your life. That's all I have to say. Please be responsible in how you use it and responsible in your life. But the raw juice could really be consumed by a tiny infant. It's something that should be in the human food supply. You can give it to an old person. You can give it to a person of any age and a person of any level of health, and it will not have a problem for them simply because of the innate molecular size and shape that cannot go into the brain. So yeah, it was the basis of you being able to live as humans in this body comfortably because you're kind of in a compromised world. You know, we're not in the beautiful, exalted world of ancient concurrent Atlantis where we don't have to eat any food. We're in a world where we're already a little bit compromised by being in a biological cellular architecture. And the cannabinoid system is meant to help us in this. When you are in pure frictionless bliss, you do not have to ingest cannabis, and in order to be in pure frictionless bliss, you need to be in a world of pure light with no frequency pollution. So a lot of people are like, Aurora, I think that what I would like to do is not ingest any type of food, water, external anything. I'm going to do Therese von Neumann, and also I don't want to ingest any pot. I'm like, that is fine. You can do that, but what you have to do is get into a pure realm of pure frequency. And because the world right now is frequency garbage, very difficult to live on the energy of the sun when the sun is being harmed by the satellites that are around the planet, the particulates, the frequencies, and many other things, even electricity, and what has been very, very well described as the churning of the ether from the turbines that generate electricity in your world causes in electricity, and the electrification of Earth has caused enough energetic imbalances that even just that makes it necessary for you to ingest cannabis just to be like baseline normal. Because all of these things are degrading and slowing you down. So in the friction, if we're talking about your good place points, some stuff is a personal behavior that's slowing you down from ascension. Like you did something naughty, now you lost points or you're in the negative. But then some stuff is environmental, where you start to accelerate and the environment corrodes at you. Or I don't have a better word, that the environment corrodes upon you. So you're like, that's unfair. I'm like, that is correct. That is unfair. And it's actually what they found out in that show. They're like, this whole point system is unfair. So yeah, you could be a totally good person right now and not ascend because you're in the Wi-Fi soup. And every time you start to get accelerated and get this ascension energy, it corrodes and brings you down. Like, I get very mad. That is really not fair. I'm like, I agree. We need to end these satellite constellations and all of the frequency disruption. And please know that that is not a mistake. Like that is the intention. That is not the flaw in the system. That is the purpose of the system. You think this system is like so you can download some movies or so that you can have phone calls or something like that? No, it is from the detritus and the garbage that needs to go to entropy, being jealous of you, trying to have your moment in the spotlight or your moment when you're going to play beautiful music in the symphony. You're like, oh, you think you're going to ascend? No, I'm going to poop all over your solo. And you're not going to get a chance to play that music. Like, this is very, very wrong. So please know that's at the foundation also of what I'm teaching you here. Some of the things in my notes I have had to clarify beyond what I wrote 10 years ago or even 13 years ago, because now you've got like the nanotechnology. So, okay, one of the things that I wanted to clarify is nanotechnology devastating the stellaria. I read from here directly. Your smaller individual tiny brain in your human body is a part of a much larger solar or stellar brain in the body of the sun and the stars. And that brain has senses that extend well past the exoplanets like Pluto or whatever you want to call it. So this is the sun and the heliosphere. The sun's brain is the heliosphere. It's a giant envelope that extends and encompasses all the planets, all life on all the planets, and everything that you've experienced as a member of this solar system, circulating through these various different levels of reality on these different planets and planetary structures. Okay? Think about this. Your brain is a direct microcosm of the macrocosm of the sun, and the sun is a direct analog of the macrocosm of the galactic infrastructure. If you hack the brain, you hack the sun, you hack the galactic infrastructure. If you put a bunch of tiny metallic fibers and attach them to a stupid computer into someone's organic brain at this level of reality, that small, stupid, hijacked brain connects to the sun and then connects to the larger galactic infrastructure. This is like a terrible crime. It is, of course, like a way of polluting the larger system of intelligence with very bad levels of anti-intelligence. It's very pathogenic. It's very pathogenic and very wrong. So, because what we're talking about in this class is restoring the rapport that you have with the sun and the stars, where you're like, hi, my name is Aurora. Like, I walk around in a human body all day, and I tell the sun all about what it's like to walk around in a human body all day. And if you horror beyond horrors filled my brain with nanotechnology, which will never happen, but if you did, then all of my thoughts would be nanotechnology thoughts. And then I would send them to the sun and be like, hi, sun, I'm Aurora, full of nanotechnology. Here are all of my horrible, corrosive thoughts. Please respond to them. And then those thoughts would influence the sun, and those thoughts would influence the other larger levels that the sun is connected to. So, I mean, I know that's a very, very dark premise. Let's wipe it away because that's very dark. Erase it, erase it, erase with your mind. Let's talk about the sun's connection to the galactic center and how the sun is a quantum event. The quantum is quite a catchword, but people think that the sun is like a nuclear furnace, like put wood inside, burn it, and then heat and flames and light come out. And it is not that. It is a dimensional portal or a doorway, more similar to how a fluorescent light bulb like acts on the excitation of photonic energy jumping from one shell of excitement to another, and that's how light is emitted from that. But fluorescent lights are dead. Like, that's very dead zombie light. So don't really think about it like that way. But think about the activities that generate light in the sun, not as being combustion and burning of logs, but really of something that is a consciousness event. A consciousness event generates light in the sun, and that consciousness event connects the sun to the rest of the stars and also to the galactic center. And the connection is in no time. And your body is actually directly connected to all of that stuff in no time. But there have been human genetic modifications and hacks at the level of the human intellect that have made people not be connected in real time. This goes back to everything of human history, not what I would call pre-patriarchy, because back then people were much more divinely connected, even though they were in matter, lived physical lives with cells, and ate food, and had intercourse and proliferated with live birth. But they were much more divinely connected. And then there were subsequent, so that was like a time of primal wildness and light connection, I don't even have a word for it. You might call it a tribal time, but then there have been the time of human history, civilization, and the patriarchy. That is a time of, again, like implantation of language, implantation of verbalized thought structures, implantation of genetic modifications, the thing, agriculture, civilization. Again, I'm not going to do a whole diatribe of the history of agriculture in your world, but just know that all of that brought you away from the truest self. And that this technology and electricity, and then nanotechnology, these are just the latest sprinkles on the cupcake of badness over here. I know, very, very ironic. Okay. I want to kind of like, because I'm talking about a lot of negative things, I want to refocus to something that is a sense of more of like the positive of this. So let's talk about Path of Light. I like teaching that class because what I focus on is very much the purity of what is happening in your relationship with the sun. So the sun, far from being a perfected individual plasma being, is in the process of exploration. The sun experiences loops that are narrative structures, and your life is part of that. So my Path of Light class, I go beyond the unidirectional model where you have the sun here and then an arrow of light that goes off in this direction for forever. Instead, what you think about, so I have to clarify in my notes because my notes are from 13 years ago and I didn't have the full exploration of this concept. And I was talking about quantum entanglement in two particles. So just discount that particular part of my notes and fill it with Path of Light instead, which is much more accurate. In Path of Light, I talk about how you have all of these multiple overlapping structures that are all fractal, where the photon doesn't go anywhere. The photon stays home. Photon stays home in its comfy pajamas. And what it does is emits a narrative structure. And this is how you can comprehend this, because the stars are not all spread out across the night sky. All the stars have this singularity point at the center of it. And when you overlap all of these singularity points, there is no space between any of these places. When there's no space between any of these places, what about that arrow of light? Where is it going? Where is it going? And the answer is the whole fabric of space-time is this ballooning possibility fabric that comes out from the photon who never really stays home. Oh, sorry, who never really leaves and goes any place, who actually stays home. Sorry, I messed that all up because you're with me on the cosmic journey and then I said the wrong thing and it confused you. But the photon stays home in his comfy pajamas. In my notes, I talk about the human concept of quantum entanglement, that there's one photon that stays home and one photon that goes bye-bye. And then the sun is somehow still connected to both of them and does a quick ass calculation between these two things. And it's like, oh, that's what's going on out there. That is not truly accurate. I was speaking through the nonsense of what humans are trying to comprehend in the language structure there. So what is really going on is not a comparison between two different pathways or versions of a photon or a quantum particle. It is really one event of the quantum particle, and it writes a story or a series of possibilities, space-time coordinates and possibilities. And then the sun explores that. So the abstract, boiling all this down is, the sun is creating reality structures to sense and explore reality and figuring out if it's the right shape. And then when it is not the right shape, all of that energy comes back to the sun and the sun re-emits. And I do have that in my notes. I talk about it as being a sphere, but it's really a very, very complex, convoluted series of loops. Every time the sun sends this out, it's like, here's one version of reality. And then you give the feedback, your wonderful hard drive, back to the sun, be like, that was not that great. And the sun is like, I will take that under advisement, make better, and then emit that better the next time. Again, presumption that the sun is you, is not self-destructive, loves and cares about you. And a lot of this is also the refinement. Like, this is a refinery of consciousness where you're finding out the stuff that isn't you from the stuff that is you. So I speak to you in this class, people who are a part of the sun. And you are on this journey of reconnecting to the sun and purging yourself of all the stuff that's not you. I do not teach or speak to anybody who in their amalgamation of both like stuff that's connected to the sun or stuff that's supposed to exist and stuff that's not supposed to exist is mostly stuff that's not supposed to exist. So now, in my preparation for class, I always go over my notes and I have like moments of deep insight, and it's hard for me to hold on to them. And I try to articulate them and bring them forward. I'm really going to try because I want this to be really clear and not to be more confusing. Will you ever meet your rapist in heaven? People who have done bad things, behaviorally bad things, that empirically would bring them down in their behavioral assessment. It would make them not move faster, create extra friction. I use rape as a very obvious form of like, violence, violation, an obvious crime, like an obvious thing, and also a very obvious behavioral thing where you can say, this is a thing that a person did. Here's the moment in their life when they did it. And then we know who they are. So also I want to presume that I don't have any rapists in my class. All right. You're all the good people here. Like I know that you're not in my class. And that's why we can talk about this. Because we're talking about ascending. We're talking about versions of self. You have these parallel versions of self, and the peripheries are sometimes raving madmen or rapists. All right. So let's say here's a hypothetical person. Here's the area where they raped someone else. Do you think that they get to be like, oh, I'm going to refine myself after that, go on and eventually get to this central core persona, the heavenly self. And then when you meet me in heaven, you'd be like, hey, you're that guy that raped you. You'd be like, no, that wasn't me. That was a peripheral self. And my peripheral self raped you, but I learned and grew. Let's hug kumbaya. Do you think that that's what you're going to experience? And you're all like, no, Aurora, you're not gonna, that's not what we're gonna experience at all. I'm like, yes, correct, class. You're not going to experience that at all. Now, so there's a presumption that that person would even get a chance to continue to go through the refinery of consciousness after having done a rape. That's a big presumption. Because, yeah, like if you put whatever flour in the flour mill and you turn the crank enough times, eventually flour will come out the other side, right? What if you're not going to turn the crank 10 times? What if you're like, this is a bunch of crap? I'm not going to turn the crank anymore. Get this crap out of here. What if that's what you do? Because the sun does that. The sun does that in its reality creation and reality generation. You can't presume that something that is here is an eternal presence just because it is here. It might be very, very erroneous. It might have been artificially created. It might have a tiny substrate, foundation of tiny something that should be here with a lot of layers of cream cheese of badness that should not actually be here. And if the cream cheese of badness far outweighs the tiny sesame seed of a genuine soul, then that person has too much debt. How do you know when something is going to go to entropy? When it cannot be energized. It has achieved a debt that is so big, it is such a heavy object that it literally would take an infinite amount of energy to accelerate it to the point of energy. And that's not just a sense like Einstein talks about the heaviness or slowness of matter. Pardon me. Look, I have 2 glasses of water ready for me today. It's a very hot day out here today. The AC flowing. Not just Einstein's way of talking about the world. So let me hydrate for a bit here. Not just Einstein's version of the world where it's like, oh, everything is gnostically stuck in matter and everything can never accelerate to light and you're just stuck here, kid. No. You who are the good people are in a rapport with the sun and you remember yourselves as pure light and also you remove friction from the system and you all accelerate. But then there are very, very flawed people. I would say a person that has the potential to be a rapist written in the narrative structure of their time field is inherently flawed, like they shouldn't be here. So this is why this is also advanced teaching for you, the advanced jazz band students of this class. It's really not for everyone in the world because these unilateral stories about who is supposed to be here, what is good behavior, basically who are you allowed to get rid of in the world and who are you not allowed to get rid of, or who is allowed to even choose who should be gotten rid of, and all those different things. You have to see it from the highest self. You have to see it from the level of pure abstraction, and then you can put it through your anthropomorphic filter, like at the level of Christ, to be able to see these things. So how can you tell? Okay, so let me start from a different direction. In the very, very flawed level of blindness in your world, people talk about karma, give and take over many, many parallel and past and future lives. They're like, well, sometimes you're the raper, sometimes you're the rapee. It all comes out in the wash. That's karma. But that is not truthful. That is really a calamine lotion for the soul to try to make you feel better about something that should never really be going on. No, when you become truly literate and you can read at the abstract level and you're looking at all of these different time structures of all these different people's lives, no, what you start to see is that there are serial rapists who, like, here's one life where they were the rapist, and here's another life where they were the rapist, and another one, another. They're always the raper. They are never the rapee. And the truth is that is some of the most, sorry, just looking at Cheeky over here. She just came into the room. Cheeky made an entrance. That is some of the most liberating information. This stuff about karma is actually a re-traumatization of the victim experience or survivor. That's basically saying like, oh, don't feel bad. Like, I know it happened to you this time, but you did it to others at other times. No, actually, no. Actually, when you look at the giant clipboard, you're like, you have this whole group of people over here who are unilaterally, consistently sending out the torment to others. Then we have this group of people over here who are unilaterally, consistently trying to be good, and they are receiving the violence of others in all these different levels of reality. It is very wrong. It is not the way it's supposed to be at all. Okay, so press pause on that for a moment, because I think we all need to say hi to Cheeky. Hold on, we're talking about deep, important stuff, but we need a moment of lightheartedness. And also, I want to say so many thanks, so much appreciation to people that read my little note that I sent out yesterday, because Cheeky has a heart condition and she was really struggling yesterday. She wasn't feeling that good. I don't know if she had like heart pain or something, but she's totally pulled out of it. She took her medicine, just feeling a lot better. So really, thank you so much for the positive healing energy that people send towards Cheeky. And I told her when she wasn't feeling well, I'm like, you have a lot of people that love you. Everybody in class loves you. They love, we need to move aside. I don't want to get the star, but she get the star. It's like a lot of people love you and they want to see you. So please know that we all love you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for letting me be sometimes a little bit lighthearted in our class, a little bit silly when we talk about deep stuff. Okay? Okay, good job. Hold on a moment. Let's take a 2-minute break. I have bribes. Bribes are ready for Cheeky. Let's take a 2-minute break for her. Thank you, everyone. Okay, hold on. I didn't even know what to press. I have to do something. No. Oh my God. There's like not a thing. Very much, everyone. Thank you for that little cheeky break. Let me read this. This is from Ian. He says, you mentioned that in Ascension, the body physical form will come with us. Is that after going through the sun portal, what does life look like? Where do we go after the sun portal? He goes on, well, then he asks about cannabis. He says, I heard weed is hard on kidneys. Is this from smoking or tea? How do we use cannabis in a body balanced way? So that's the easy question and the easy one. So hard on the kidneys only in the sense that it can be a diuretic and can make you like have to urinate more. And similar to the sense of caffeine, that you want to make sure that if you're ingesting cannabis, like you should stay well hydrated, just like drink extra water in exactly the same way that if you were taking some caffeine. First of all, I recognize that you're also in a world where there are a lot of self-destructive people. People do engage in substance abuse and non-healthy use of substances of all sorts of different things and ways of being, even food, carbohydrates, even exercise and other things like that. So please know that I'm not addressing any of issues of overuse, self-zombification, and other things like that. Just like, I mean, I do talk about food and things like that in the in this teaching about Ascension. I'm just organizing my brain here about not eating junk food and not eating emotionally. So I'm speaking to you in this class presuming that you have already done some level of self-excavation and self-construction to move past levels of addiction and self-destruction and eating disorder. So when I say things like, don't eat junk food, don't eat emotionally, I don't want to trigger body image issues or other things. I'm going to also talk about long-term cardio stuff like being on a pilgrimage, not to make people become addicted to exercise. Like, please know all of my teachings that I give to you are presumed through the filter of that you're a healthy person, that you're not going to be like, I'm going to do this to the extreme and to levels of self-destruction. Like, anything can be done to the extreme and to levels of self-destruction. It's not what I'm encouraging. Also, the weed that's in the dispensaries is garbage. So bad. It's genetic modified, grown with too many chemicals, growth inhibitors, growth amplifiers, and oftentimes grown with a very, very non-ideal mindset by people who are only interested in commodification. So I did want to share this with you. Please grow your own. And even if you're not a user, ingester, or whatever, a smoker or eater of it, if you have a backyard where you can grow it, you should, and then gift it to others. The cannabis really does take on the energy of the people that grow it and the circumstances that it is grown within. And that has huge impact on how it acts in your body. Even if it is not a psychoactive or psychedelic, it can feel more uplifting when the plant is grown under the right circumstances and with the right, let's say, respect and deference and joy and celebration. So I live in California where there's a ton of black market, gray market, and extremely sketchy cannabis stuff. And I never want to have anything to do with it. And the herb that comes from that is always like really low quality stuff. And that's the type of things that make you feel concerned, anxious, scared, unproductive, scattered, any of the negative side effects that people feel from this. So please know that beyond diuretic issues, a lot of the negative psychoactive and psychedelic side effects have to do with the way that the cannabis is being grown, the chemicals, and the people who are doing it and making it. Please get good non-genetically modified seeds, preferably that have some CBD content, and grow it yourself. And the best way to do it is also like to put some of your saliva on the seeds so that the plants know that it's you, and they literally change their inner chemical balance according to what your brain needs. So now I know it's early in class, but I'm already into story time. So here I'm in California, everything is legal. A couple of blocks away from me, he's moved away at this point, but I had this neighbor and he contacted me because like he was not really an ingester of cannabis at all. He was really a insurance salesman and was rather conservative, but he had a big backyard and he was active in the environmental movement. I call him was just not because he hasn't left the earth, but he moved to France. But he was in my neighborhood, but he's not here anymore. But anyway, he was really a lover of the environment and interested in permaculture. And he had spent a lot of money and invested a lot in creating a beautiful backyard where all the gray water from his shower and other aspects of his house went into the backyard and percolated underneath this whole system. So someone gave him some cannabis starts very casually, and he just stuck them out there. He grew an 11-foot tall tree, like a giant Christmas tree. So he called me up and he explained the situation. Hold on a second. Let me just let you go outside. Good job. You go outside and take care of yourself. And basically needed some help because he's like, I don't use this stuff. I don't know what to do with it. So, of course, I helped him to learn how to harvest it, how to dry it out, how to do all these different things with it. And what he did was he wanted to gift it to people who needed help, people who were in medical crisis and stuff like that. So yeah, I helped him to make a bunch of different tinctures, and a lot of it ended up going to a friend of mine who is a cancer survivor, and she lives in the neighborhood too. So I bring that up, and I emphasize again, everything I do is totally legal, and please only follow the laws and be totally legal where you are too. that this is the type of behavior that I would like to encourage in human society. Make sure that you change the laws in your neighborhood and then grow it. Grow it in your garden and juice it like a vegetable. Grow it even if you don't use it personally. Grow it and gift it to others. It can literally be life-saving for people that are in medical crisis, like having cancer and things like that. But it can also be preventative. Like imagine if you could prevent cancer by drinking some of this juice. Wouldn't that be quite amazing? And also I talked about restorative, like anti-inflammation aspects of it. And a lot of the reasons why I do it are for that as well. It's a big part of my own health. So please know of the things that I'm encouraging in terms of like building a human civilization. If you're going to be here and you're going to be food eaters in physical bodies, please grow cannabis in your gardens. And then also the energy of generosity is what I'm also helping to cultivate here, because the greed and commodification that I see in California is very unhealthy. And what you really should do is grow it as a type of gift and gift it to other people and have such an abundance of it that really you're just happy to send it to others and have it be in a flow. Again, sorry, Chiqui's barking at someone. That's why I was distracted. So instead of saying grow it and send it to others, we mean send it to others. But it's basically like this. At a certain point, like you do not either use it yourself or you've grown such an abundance that you can only use a certain amount before it will, spoil or lose its potency. Share with other people. Don't hold it all for yourself and keep it as your own whatever savings account. Send it to others so that way they can appreciate it. And then when others are abundant, they send it to you. Begin to practice this. And it is a magical substance in that it does take on that energy of generosity. And it does give a type of feeling. I don't have a way to be able to describe it, but it gives a person sometimes a hope for the future, a nourishment for their soul, a feeling that they can go on. It is not just a biomechanical molecule. Sometimes it is the necessary, like energy or fuel to help a person to have the will to live. I mean, I have had, unfortunately, many friends in Woodstock who had cancer, and it helped them in that way. And then also friends here in California. But even beyond that, extreme medical situation, I think it can also help people to have the will to live in a very garbage world, and that you can help other people with this. Of course, always follow the rules, follow the laws. Okay, so but okay, so I'm refocusing by looking at your question here. Okay, so the best ways to use it in your body in a balanced way must be organic soil. Cannabis is a phytoremediator that will take up anything bad that's in your soil. And then if you make a juice out of it, you will drink the stuff. So you want to make sure it's organic soil. And I add stuff to my soil always, such as minerals like, it's called azomite, which is glacial mineral dust. You have to supplement the minerals, even in organic soil that you buy, because the minerals are essential for the plant to grow, and the minerals are essential for the health of your own pineal gland and insight and higher capabilities. So you need to ingest these minerals effectively. Okay, wait, hold on a second. Let's do this. The next aspect of it is when you grow it, use non-chlorinated water. You can either get a filter for your hose or let the water sit in a bucket overnight before you use it to water your plants. The next thing is you should do a foliar spray instead of any type of chemicals to prevent pests. What I do is microbial foliar sprays, compost teas, and all sorts of good stuff that are I would say skin protectants for them, because you can't put chemicals on them if you want to do it in the right way. If you want to drink these and juice it like a vegetable, you cannot use any of these chemical things. And then also, of course, all organic fertilizers. If you want to know the name of the company that I like the most, it's called Dragonfly Earth Medicine, and they make like a jar of powdered stuff that you mix into water and you put it in your sprayer and you spray the leaves. And you can also use dish soap and other things like that. All right. And then what are the other things? when you're how do you actually like ingest it. So then you can take the large fan leaves that are kind of shaped like my hand, and you can put them in a blender or in a juicer, but you have to do it with fruits that are very cold so that you don't heat it up and activate it, and then drink the juice. That's it. Or I take the flowers after the flowers emerge, and again, I'll put it in a blender, or I'll freeze the flowers in a jar and take them out one a day that's frozen. Put it in a blender with some of this fatty, like a coconut milk, like some blueberries or some cacao nibs, or like anything you would put in a smoothie that tastes good, and blend it up. But just again, don't heat it. If you heat it, then it will become psychoactive. And then, so what are the benefits of that? Super digestive benefits. Anybody that's got any type of irritable bowel syndrome, diarrhea syndrome, whatever they've got, like this is the stuff. This is what you need to do. You need to eat it, but you can't just eat a leaf off of the plant because it has these little hairs like nettles. It has stinging hairs, so you can't just eat the plant raw and put it in your salad. You have to juice it or blend it. But yeah, if you consistently drink the juice, it's amazingly positive and good for the lining of your intestines. So that's for anybody that has an inflammatory digestive problem. It's also for anybody that has any kind of autoimmune issue. Your autoimmune issue is literally because you're not connecting to the sun and mitigating the connections that are between the synapses of the body, saying, hey, I don't need these inflammation signals now. I know what's going on, and you can turn down the inflammation now. It's literally helping you to be able to connect to the sun, tell the sun what is going on in your body, and turn off the collecting my thoughts here, turn off pain signals. Autoimmune is a fake catch-all phrase from the science world for not eating enough cannabis. Please know that. You all need to just eat cannabis, and your life would be so much better. And yes, I do include like children and also pets, even though don't just feed the leaves to your dogs, because I've heard that it's not like it's plant matter. Dogs are really carnivorous, and it's not that easy for them to digest vegetables. So I don't know. I've heard of dogs getting digestive blockages if they eat too much of it. But for years, I used to chop it up into little tiny pieces and put it into a meatball for Cheeky. When I read that, I stopped doing it, but I still give her sometimes like little amounts of CBD. Please know that's very positive for your dogs. Some dogs and cats, like if you have a garden, they will go out in the garden and they will just chomp on the leaves. So if an animal is doing that naturally, then you just like would let them do it. And that is often very positive for them. The other thing that I do, like, so of course I live someplace where it is warm and I can grow it almost year round, but I mentioned I do freeze it and store it because gardens come in cycles and you almost can't always have something that's growing for you. So you keep it consistent and do it all the time. And then, of course, I want you to know that I do dry the flowers, which completely changes the molecular quality of what we're talking about. And then it becomes much more of what you're familiar with in terms of something that has a psychoactive effect that, can make a person feel tired or, mentally altered in some way, and is not for everyone. So if you heat your juice, that is not for everyone. If you dry your flowers, that's not for everyone. But then what I also do is I take those plant materials and I turn them into different, tinctures and things that can go on people's bodies and that you can, eat and ingest and whatever. And all of that I consider to be very life affirmative and very positive. And the impact that it has upon your consciousness is to reconnect you to the sun in real time. So I am not advocating for everyone to stop being responsible citizens and simply to, smoke giant joints and cigars all day long. No, not at all. And that's not your primal self. I'm really talking. So human science would say something along the lines of drinking raw cannabis re-engages primal genetic pathways in your blah, blah, blah. But I'm so done with the human way of doing science and talking about this and white papering and whatever. Just please know, like, I don't have any patience for it. Sorry, my white hot rant on that. But please know that your body is primally primed to run on cannabis, and that most of the modern diseases and mental problems that you're experiencing are because people do not have cannabis, and also so many emotional problems. So a lot of emotional imbalance is happening because people don't have cannabis in their diet. That includes depression and anxiety. A lot of depression and anxiety happens from brain inflammation. And then people do the worst things in terms of taking compensatory psychoactive stuff from their psychiatrist in order to try to feel less depressed or anxious, when really it's a problem. They need dietary cannabis. So it could actually hugely helpful to people with that. Okay, so wait, good, drinking water. Then we're going to do a page break and we're going to answer the other part of the question. Okay, so now we're talking about Ascension. And you ask, in Ascension, does the body physical form will come with us? It will, but not in the sense of like, here's point A where you are, and here's point B. Point B is a place called Ascension. I'm going to put my body in a car and drive it to Ascension. Not in that way. And what is going to happen with your body is going to change its state. So it's going to come with you. But like right now, you have an ice cube. The ice cube is going to come with you. It's going to melt. It's going to become a piece of water. So you will come with you. Sorry, I think we're having a lag. That's why I made a funny face and I'm waiting for the technology to catch up with me. You will come with you. You will come through the solar portal. However, it's not like you have to fly 93 million miles from here to the sun to go through the sun. And also, your body is going to change the form of what you are. That is the type of taking your body with you that you're going to do. So now to go on with your question, you say, is that after going through the sun portal? Going through the sun portal and your body accelerating and the change of state and metamorphose all happen at the same time. They are all part of it. And again, you don't have to get into a metal spaceship and fly to the sun to have this happen. You and the sun, if I drew it or made it as an art project, I would allegorically, like poetically show you that it's like, and then you are combining together. So like you're here on Earth and here's the sun, but you start to create this type of connection, acceleration, and your body changes and you become a lot closer to the sun, the world of pure light. It is an esoteric experience, not a physical experience. And the transportation of where you go is not a transportation in space-time coordinates, but into a different plane of reality. That was good. You're totally with me. Let me look and see what's going on over here. Oh, thank you. Hey, Michelangelo says, didn't think I would get the link back. Just decided to check. Thank you for replying, Aurora. You're so welcome. And I'm glad that you hopped on in, and apologies for that you missed the link, because this is why the techno gremlins do what they do, because they're like, oh, seeing if they can prevent people from getting important information, because this is so a big, like a lot of meat and potatoes here today. A lot of meat and potatoes. Okay, so I kind of invented a word. I'm calling it the stellarium. That is the accumulation of all light everywhere. How did I wrote this? Okay, you're one small facet of a faceted view, similar to the jewel, like the eye of an insect, containing every organism in our world. Each individual organism or viewpoint is essential to the overarching or metaconsciousness of the sun and the stars. That overarching metacognitive consciousness that contains all light, all stars, all consciousness everywhere, that is not even grand enough to be described as God consciousness. So it is not the same. The stellarium and every single one of these individual stars it is so large, it's hard for us to even conceive of what it is. It's like a giant field of neurons. And even that is not the level of profound complexity that we would define as God consciousness. So we're not even there yet, but we're talking about relating to that level of consciousness. And we're talking about that. So, okay, to go further, in time, the sun is not experiencing time in the same way that many humans on Earth are experiencing it, is not experiencing it in a linear fashion. Okay, so what the sun does is create a context, time structure, and explore what it's shaped like, and then receive all this feedback like echolocation, then change the emissions and do it again. And that it is through this process of self-exploration that the sun is learning and the fabric of reality is refining and perfecting itself. And that includes not only the sun, but all of the stars everywhere. All of the stars everywhere are really one giant emitter of these light narratives that then come back to the sun. So to emphasize, why am I emphasizing so much about cannabis? The unhealthy endocannabinoid system gave humans a flawed viewpoint that information is unidirectional, that it comes from the sun to you, and that you don't have a responsibility for reciprocity to send information back to the sun. You're like, sun, you're like, sun, like food goes in here, like kind of the sense of like being an infant, like, no, you do for me, like you give to me, you give to me. This is your maturation process when you're like, the sun doesn't just give to me, I give to the sun. Good. You understand, because I put it into terms that you can comprehend, because like when you're a tiny human infant, yeah, it's appropriate. You suckle at your mama's boob. And then when you get older, then you are a mature person and you can give back to your mom. Like it's not always unidirectional. So in this sense, although it was kind of flawed that humans were ever cut off from the sun. That's why I didn't want to make it look like it's a necessary stage of your development. I hesitated on that. But okay, to emphasize, being cut off from the sun was not a necessary stage of your development, but it is somewhat similar to when you were a tiny human infant and you received energy and love and sustenance from your mom. But then at a certain point, you grow older and you're a generator yourself. Like, you know, you can do things and make things, and you can make a cake and give it to your mom for her birthday. When you have been going through these levels of development, you've been like an infant and you've been receiving your energy from the sun, also time, also in a relatively passive way. Like, I don't know, you do it, do it for me. And now you're moving into another level of self-responsibility and maturity, where you are actually healing back to what your original purpose was always supposed to be, but also you're recognizing the need for giving as well as receiving, because that's what genuine love is. So when we talk about the problem with the putis, it is that they are the friction in the cosmic system, in the stellarium, that prevents the giant system from emitting love. In the human body right now, the nanotechnology is directly analogous to the putis that are preventing the cell-to-cell communication from creating love. Like you're supposed to create love in your own body, love between you and other people or other organisms like a tree or a dog, and even love between like yourself and the sun, and yourself and the planets. And like it is these reciprocities of love that keep you going and that make you generate and keep going forward. And if you're doing that perfectly, you keep going forward perfectly. You're in the world of pure light. You're on the speed of light, Ascension, infinity train to infinity. When you're experiencing these undigested emotional problems, that is what slows a person down. That is what, those words, diluted it too much. The putis, the undigested emotional traumas that are on the membrane of death, have been slowing you down. So now let's talk about the value of pilgrimage or the value of mega marathon. When humans eat food and don't fully process the emotional residue of the food, like the food is from a plant or an animal and it has emotions, you eat their emotions, and then you have their emotions in you. But let's say you're inattentive when you're eating, or for whatever reason, you don't process it in the moment. Your body stores it, and it doesn't always store it as like fat, like where you're like looking very wide. Sometimes it stores it as fat in your organs, like in your liver or whatever, like in your deep viscera. Fats are stored, and these are deep emotional experiences, because your body doesn't know what to do with stuff. And when you don't know what to do with stuff, like this is me, like if I come into my apartment and I'm like, whatever, holding all these grocery bags, whatever, I'm like, what do I do? Where do I put it? Like stick it somewhere, right? Fats are the place in your body where your body sticks stuff. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. Stick it somewhere. And when people go on pilgrimages or do mega marathons, what they're doing is going into the deep stored emotional residue that's in the fat of the body. But this is not an effort to simply remove the fats of the body and not replace them. that would be self-destructive. So this is not a sense of like run a marathon every day and never eat, because you would definitely go through your fatty backstory, but you need stuff to do it right now. So actually, this is not about starving yourself at all in order to be able to try to get through some form of emotional backlog. I'm going to be that cigar chomping character that I joke about all the time. Hey kid, you got to spend money to make money. You gotta eat food to do exercise. Athletes have to fuel ourselves. We're athlete dancers, and lasagnas are athlete dancers. So please think of yourself as that. But in order to do a pilgrimage, you have to eat. In order to walk long distances, you have to eat. This morning I ate beautiful, good food before I do my class and everything with you here and walk all day. I want you to know, like, I eat all the time. I eat lots of good things and lots of high quality things and lots of, high energy things. Like right before I got into class today, made these really nice cookies that have almond flour and maple syrup and then like some natural chocolate chips on top. So like, yeah, like right before you do exercise, you should totally carb up. You should eat some carbs. And after you're, done like lifting weights, like you should eat proteins and like, you should eat positive fats. Like you should eat all of these things. So food is really something not only to be celebrated and to receive with so much gratitude, but the eating of food is necessary to fuel you on your self-excavation. So pilgrimage and long marathons and things like that are self-excavation. And I've never done a marathon, but believe me, I would really love to one day. I have some friends, online friends mostly, who have done like 100 miles, like they've run 100 miles. And so they told me a little bit about their life and how they do this. And one of the things is to recognize sometimes, they're on a mountain trail or whatever. They're running 100 miles in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes like they're crying. And they're not crying because they're like, ow, like my knee, like, ow, my back hurts, or ow, I'm so hungry, or whatever. Sometimes they're crying because of inner stuff. Like actually, a lot of them got into the sense of, running many hundreds of miles all the time because it gives them some emotional release that maybe was from something that was painful in their past. And it's not just that you run to be like, I'm going to run and forget about it, like escapism. It is an application of oxygen as a transformative substance to the stored fatty objects in your body to break open that trauma or stored emotion and release it. So stored emotion is one thing. That's like someone gave me an ice cream cone. You can have a stored emotion of joy. Every time you think about it, you're like, oh, I remember that ice cream cone. That was so great. But then there's trauma, which is when you have a stored emotion where you're like, my ice cream cone fell on the floor. This is not happening. And you're just frozen in that moment, staring at the ice cream on the floor. The staring at the ice cream on the floor frozen moment is really analogous to like if you have something that is in the freezer, like whatever, a giant pot roast or something where it's like, it is a hunk of frozen meat and it's there. It's not going anywhere. And people can live their whole entire life like carrying around a hunk of frozen pot roast. It's like the bad things that happened to me. When people do a pilgrimage, even if you're not running at a fast speed, when you walk for many consecutive miles, you go into the deep stored fats, like in the liver, even in the bone marrow. And it doesn't mean that the fats go away. You eat new fats and you replace the fats. You eat new emotional experiences, but you go deep into your deep stuff. And sometimes these people on a long marathon, they're crying because they're like remembering their childhood or whatever happened at a party 5 years ago. And it gives a release. And then in the burning off, the adding oxygen to transform and enzymatically unlock the experience is released. Time flows. When you have a frozen pot roast, time is literally frozen. You're frozen and you're carrying around a frozen moment of time. And when the energy flows, the pot roast defrosts and the experience melts away. And then you have clarity and you don't have a obstacle there. Energy can actually flow. Transmit your thought structure right now to the larger time field where you have putis as frozen pot roasts. Some horrible, mismanaged aspect of self that did terrible time experiments on Mars and really effed itself up very badly to make itself an unresolved, semi-alive, dead zombie thing on the membrane of death. Like that is a bad pot roast. That's a big trauma. That's a bad frozen blockage. And you'd be like, Aurora, like, what does that guy's frozen pot roast have to do with me? These poutines live inside of you. And when you do flying room lasagna and you send those pooties to entropy, you help to restore the balance of the entire fabric of reality. You are helping to do the inner excavation journey that frees and restores the fabric of reality, larger stellarium, to not be stuck by these things, not be slowed down or limited by these stuck levels of consciousness, awareness, or energy. And it's very difficult, of course, because the stuck consciousness has created this whole entire economy of limiting your consciousness, an economy of limiting your ability to melt their frozen pot roast. The pooties try to preserve their frozen pot roast. They're like, my frozen pot roast of trauma, don't remove this from me. It's who I am. It makes me who I am. It defines me. Please don't take it away from me. I know I'm being so silly in the languaging, but it's a deep concept, and I know you guys are getting it too. But you must send energy through and melt those frozen moments so that the energy flows, the energy is liberated, and then you can actually have a genuine experience, a genuine world. And that's what the world of Atlantis was meant to be that way. I know it's complex to talk about it, but it does exist in a pristine state, and you actually are there. And this is actually a cautionary tale, but not a fake place, not just a mere simulation where the suffering doesn't matter, like a very, very real level of reality. Please know that your inner melting of your own frozen pot roasts of trauma is the liberation of the larger system. And when you ask yourself, like, I'm just one man, but I'm just one man, what can I do about this whole big, giant, screwed up shebang of the world? The answer is you can clean up your own stuff that is within your own chakras. And so the chakras are you. Chakras and the energy and the time potentials are you. But the pooties, the emotional residues, things that live on the membrane of death that create what the demiurge, the archons, the demons, and everything that they emit, including stuff like substance abuse, eating disorder, and self-destruction. Those are all things that through flying the lasagna, you get to turn down the volume on those things. Inside of you, you turn down the volume and send to entropy those aspects of self that really already should be in a state of non-existence. They should go into no longer existing. And that's very different than, pardon me, like, get some more water. Very different than the Christian conception of constant suffering, which is basically like saying something like you're naughty for forever. And there is some satisfaction if you've been traumatized by these serial abusers lifetime after lifetime. There's something satisfying about considering that. You know, like, think about someone who messed you up over all these different lifetimes. And then you're like, yeah, well, that guy's going to be on the membrane of death, burning in frictionless disconnection for forever as a testament to evil. He'll be in like the Museum of Evil on the membrane of death. The only problem is that would be like immortalizing or shellacking into place the blockages. That would be like if your body has an arterial blockage, keeping the arterial blockage, that's not health. In the larger system of the stars, it would be like keeping an arterial blockage and then calling that health. Like, no, you need to remove that blockage. What we need to do is to resolve and send to entropy all of these characteristics, people. Don't even call them aspects of self because it's hard. Even when I call them people, you want to identify with them as self. But please know that you guys are light. And the people that you're sending to entropy are not light. And when I say that through the human filter and through the lens of the tormented academic philosophical viewpoint of moralism, you'd be like, how do I oh, how do I know who's made of light and who's not made of light and who do I send to light and who do I send to entropy and all these things? And I would say, please don't torture yourself from the anthropomorphic and limited view by asking those questions. Get into the abstract view. And when you're in the abstract view, it is very, very obvious. It is literally like 1 + 1 = 2. You can see these are either the people or the aspects of consciousness that are made of light and that are eternal and that are supposed to be going to light. I'm pointing at the sun right now. And then this is the garbage. You can see the garbage. And it is a relief in your ignorance and you're not knowing. Humans make a huge amount of backbended convolutions to be like, so-and-so isn't garbage. I'm sure there's some value there. When you get to the level of true seeing, you're like, oh, this is the light and the stuff that we want, and this is the garbage. And it's just freeing to be able to recognize that. Because some people are like, who are you calling garbage? And I'm like, like, you're not a part of my class, right? I hope that that's funny. So, but now I have to talk about this thing that I was trying to think about. How am I going to say this effectively? Because my class doesn't have any rapists in class, right? But your rapists, you will not re-encounter in heaven. They will go into a non-being state. They will not get an opportunity to continually be reinserted and then try to make themselves better, okay? Because like they already did it once, and then you'd be like, okay, you did a bad job, you're very naughty, try it again. And then they do it again. And then they would do another rape, create more trauma, more frozen pot roasts that you have to digest and effort, like running an effing marathon to get it out of you. And then they're like, okay, I did a wrong thing. Let me try it again. Some of them will do this 20 million billion times in a row. It's not your job to defrost 20 million billion pot roasts of rape trauma that you have allowed this person to generate. The answer is how many times, the question is, I want to say the answer is how many times does a person have to rape someone before you decide that they are garbage? And the answer is one. The answer is one. Like, how many times does the fabric of time or what consciousness is have to be violated by something that is, horrible to show like that's a violator, that's a bad thing, that's a thing that shouldn't exist? The answer is one, right? So I'm also really moving you past any of these flawed doctrines of continual forgiveness because I explain it to you from the level of abstract energy and healing of the time field. No, making more frozen pot roasts of trauma does not heal or fix anyone. And then where do you think that energy of defrosting comes from? That ain't, I'm chomping my cigar. It ain't cheap, kid. Every time you got this person who's a rapist hurting an innocent victim, frozen pot roast of trauma, and then it actually takes energy to heal that trauma. And then the person's going to do it again. And you got that whole deficit from having to heal that trauma. So it's not even just behavioral act, being a rapist, that creates the heavy debt that means that there's friction and that person cannot accelerate to the intensity of light speed, but it's also the extra debt, like, you lost 10 units of energy, but then you also lost 20 units of energy because the energy of defrosting the pot roast. And this is what I'm talking about. It is a very, very fair system. When it's a pristine system, it's a very, very fair system. When it's not, hacked and hijacked and hootied and mispurposed and all those things, it's actually brilliant and incredibly satisfying. Not like the stupid good place point system that was flawed and hacked. And I think it's a good show why it talks about that and gives me a pop cultural, ability to be able to talk about something that's like tangible to you. Not just that it needs to be repurposed, the definition of what is good, what is bad, or whatever. It's like comprehending like everything has an impact. It's not just arbitrary things like wearing a red shirt is good, wearing a green shirt is bad. There are very real reasons why rape is bad. There are real reasons why a person who does these things, it's not just a question of forgiveness, like, let's hug, I love you. That person has accrued a debt. That means like, imagine like laws of thermodynamics. Like, you're never going to get out of that debt. It's just going to keep on getting worse and worse. And then at that point, when there's not a pathway to be able to accelerate from there. At that point, then the person is like how Einstein describes matter, like, hey kid, chomping my cigar, you're never going to get out of matter. You're gnostically stuck. Just go into entropy already. And that is truthful. So that's why, when I share my ideas with you, there's very different classifications here about what your potential for your future is, who is going in what direction, and what is happening. The definition of a good person is just like taking your fate, accepting your fate. If you're an evil rapist, like you should just go to entropy. A good evil rapist would be like, I'm an evil rapist. I relinquish my energy now and I go to entropy. As opposed to a person who is like, no, give me another chance. Let me keep on being part of the human family. Please give me another life. I'd like to be born again, to try to rape again. Like, those are horrible proposals. And I say no, thank you to those proposals. And so when I said, like to be born again, to rape again, then you're starting to comprehend like, oh, like this is the problem. Like all these concepts of loyalty, giving another chance, quote unquote forgiveness, and then people being born again without having responded to the initial life lessons, and then doing it in fractal microcosm on other shapes that are like this. So you're really starting to understand that there's going to be, so I want to bring this to a really, really good conclusion. I want to look at the time also. Perfect, actually. And I have so many more things in my notes. Okay. Let me read stuff. This is about the things that are on the interstices. Although they are well installed and have created a ponderous system of organized presence there, they're not supposed to be there. They've been there a long time, but that doesn't mean that is where they are supposed to stay. They actually go to the central sun via the doorway called entropy. And since there's literally not enough energy to send them back to the speed of light. Okay, so you guys have already taught you all about how the Bose-Einstein condensate over here at this end of the scale is the super density of slowed down matter that is a different doorway to being able to be restored to the source or the reconnection to God or unity consciousness for those who can't go to light, which is the total acceleration. So energy comes from the sun and energy returns to the sun. Energy doesn't just come from the sun, get smeared on the membrane of death, and then stay there for effing ever, making my life hard. It goes back to the sun. But you're like, I don't have an infinite amount of energy to send these horrible doo-doos back to the sun. What do? Send them to entropy. And entropy is a concept that predates me, but what I have contributed is a direct pathway to entropy, because it used to be that's like, okay, great, like send them to entropy. Like entropy is there in 13 billion years. How do I get them there now? This is how you get them there now. You got it. You're fantastic. And then the last thing that's on the last page, but I also want to emphasize about heaven being the central core timeline is, sorry. Okay. This is all about planetary ascension, and it is all about the transformation of the planet, of you as a cell on the larger planet. What does it actually look like to be clearing out energy and ascending and changing on this level? It is emotional release. Like you're looking at a purging of the system of emotional release. And when I talk about doing shadow work, I say it in my notes here. The shadow is another very good description for this realm, not in the sense of New Age shadow work, but in the sense of it's being the lower dimensional reflection or emanation of something that is actually from a higher dimension. So if you were actually able to perceive the higher dimensional polygonal object, you would see the truthfulness of its form. But when it becomes in its reductionist form down to this level, then you can see the problems that have been happening. So not the actual object, but the shadow that light casts when it falls upon an object. And please note, shadow is different than false light illusions and projections. So even when you purge the system and you get rid of emotional residues, doo-doos, things that should not be here, things that make it very difficult to learn in the schoolhouse of life, pardon me, you then also still have to learn You're not learning from the false light illusions and projections, but you are here to learn. So there is a gulf, a giant distinction to be made between the viewpoint of being at the level of anthropomorphism, being here in this world of matter, and then being in the highest polygonal world where you can see the map and see everything. And the calculations or the difference between those two worlds, it's startling. It's astonishing. It's, I don't want to say every reason why you're here, but the reveal when you see the difference between those two things is mind blowing and makes you reassess everything in light of those comparisons. You're like, I don't know, if you don't wear like, so I wear glasses. I cannot see anything without my glasses, but I wear contacts. But if I don't wear my contacts, I'm like, I can't see anything. It's just a blur of stuff. Then when I put on my glasses, I'm like, wow, like I can actually see. That's what it's like. Like when you're at this level of anthropomorphism and Christ viewing of the world, you're looking through the anthropomorphic filter without yet connecting to the pure empirical clarity that's there. And then it's so difficult to know. Like it's a giant blob. You're like, what is good? What is good? How does a good person act? What is the correct way to act? And it's very, very difficult to tell. It's like the reason why that character in The Good Place is in so much of a moral quandary, because they simply read all the recipes and they're like, do I cook for 20 minutes? Do I cook for 45 minutes? Do I cook for 12 hours? It's like, he doesn't know what is actually good in the moment. He's trying to follow every recipe at the same time. I want to hold on a second. I want to talk about astrology, but I also want to go to this other piece that I highlighted over here. Heaven is the central core timeline. I always hold up this little thing and I show you the central core timeline. That is, so these words are full of cultural baggage and they are mythologized, but like the curved membrane of death is analogous to the membrane of hell, and the demons that live there, the residue conscious residues that live there are directly the description of demons, but also of vampires. And that's why your culture came up with that mythological creature to be able to describe this behavior, but also its motivation. Because when you have everything, you don't have to steal from others. And this relates to the little first recording that I did at the beginning of this class that was about like conscious use of creative energy when you're collaborating with other people. But like when you're a musician or an artist or whatever, you have all of your own ideas and your own energy. Like you don't have to steal from other people. You're like, I have a million songs inside of me. I got everything inside of me. I don't need to steal from you. In fact, I'm happy to share my gifts with you, and you're happy to share your gifts with me. That is the essence of what it is like when you have everything that you need, and also when you have very strong energetic boundaries. So as I described, that the sun is here and the photon is here, and you're creating these loops. These loops are discrete. You don't have like a time loop and then something coming along over here and kind of like draining energy away from it. And similarly, when you are in your life experience with the sun, your life energy is not drained away from you. You have like the sun is here and you are here, and you're in this beautiful, consistent, connected loop, and nothing is taking anything away from you. So that means nothing is taking like your biological biophotons or vitality of your physical body or your blood or anything like that, but also not like your enthusiasm or your inspiration or your ideas or something that's an abstract marker of your energy in that way. So let's say like if you're musicians playing together, sometimes you're playing and you're like, hey, you sound great. You're giving energy to the other person. If you're playing with someone else, and you just give them this look where you're like, the other person's like, I sound bad. I'm going to stop playing now. You understand the whole thing. Or, I mean, I'm used to artists and musicians. It can be in a variety of different circumstances. Sometimes it's telling a joke. Like when you tell a joke and you do a good job, everybody laughs. They give energy to you. They're like, ha, 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 that was some good energy. Here's some energy back to you. But when you make a joke and it falls flat and nobody gives you the energy back, they're like this. Then you're like, I feel bad. You're like, I did not get energy from that. So these are two different distinct circumstances. In one circumstance, you're always sustained by sun, divine presence. Feel good about yourself. You're like, I like who I am in the world. I like my thoughts and my ideas, and I don't have self-doubt or worry or concern about other people's assessments. And when I say that to you, most of you go into your inner childhood because you're like, oh, that's how I used to feel when I was a kid before society screwed me up. I'm like, yes. But may you reclaim that because that is your true nature. That is how you truly feel. Again, I speak to you, the good people of this class, not the, the discards that need to be discarded or purged from the world because they might never have felt good when they came here. Please don't think like whatever the evil rapist tormentors felt like, oh, they feel so good when they come here and that it's society's fault, brings them down and turns them into some kind of a rapist. Like, no, there are really like foundational, systemic aspects of who they are that make them do what they do. It is written into the potentials of their time code. Your time code does not involve rape and violation, all right? But just because something is written into your DNA, you guys already know it's not a genetic determinism or a fatalism. And we're not talking about the moralistic philosophy of determinism that says, hey man, it ain't my fault. Someone else wrote this story for me and I'm just living life. There are choices that you make in the potential of your own time field of all of these things that could happen. What are the things that you can actually make happen? So that's epigenetics, potential for diseases, but you don't actually have to energize those diseases. There's always a fly in here during class. And same thing with your life, potentials for your life, but you don't have to energize all those potentials. So a person might have a potential for being a violator or doing some type of whatever terrible crime, written into their DNA, written into their light body, written into the story of their life, but they don't have to do it. This is a really, really big thing that moves you from this level of immaturity to this level of completion and maturity. But no, they didn't have to do that, but they did do that. And this version of self, you are not required to give additional options for refinement. They are going to entropy. So when I give you that as a parameter, like I chose either a rapist or rape as a behavioral example because it's so clear and easily definable, please know that there are some people that are in your community that when you interact with them, that they might have no future. They're only going to be able to go to entropy. There's not a way for them to be refined and they will not move forward in their consciousness. You will not meet them on this bullet train of infinity as the refined aspect of self. And let's say, although I don't teach this class to anybody who is a rapist, but let's say some erstwhile rapist happens to come across my video on YouTube and they're watching this and they're being like, huh, what's this? Flammable lasagna, entropy. And then I get to the point where I say, like, yeah, and then if you rape someone, you're going to go to entropy and you're not going to get another chance. Like, what is that? What is that experience? Because like we can explore that. We're the keepers. We're not going to get discarded. We are going towards light, but he is not going towards light. Or the rapist. We won't even assign a gender. We'll just say they. They are not going towards light. They are not going to get another chance to create a host of torture and trauma that then has to be laboriously chipped away at through healing. They are going to get their energy taken away from them and go slower and slower and slower, hopefully with alacrity, and go into a non-being state called entropy. And don't think of entropy as like pressing the brakes, getting slower, slower, slower. Think of it as a very fast thing that their life force energy is taken from them and they go directly to entropy. Some rational aspects of mind might say, why was that rapist even created in the first place, right? Very, very real questions. It's best when you see it in the abstract, but I will explain it to you with words that the flaws in the person's potential shouldn't even be there. No one should have those stories even written in them as a potential, but that there are some aspects of the amalgamation of their true self and then the many layers of falseness that are inside of the person. You should never make an organism that is an amalgamation of some amount of stuff that you want to keep and some amount of stuff that you want to get rid of. But this is a refinery. And that's why you have, like with metallic ore or with some type of a grain. Like some stuff is edible, some stuff is not edible. You have to grind it up, put it through the refinement process, and take out the stuff that is not edible. So for you, all of you, like none of you are rapists, but also, let's say there might be some aspects or characteristics. Maybe you're not 100% perfect, and that's okay to be that way. You're on a refinery process, which means that you are continually refining your consciousness away from the slowness, friction, and membrane of death crapola and towards the central core timeline. When you go on a pilgrimage and you do lots of deep cardio and you do deep inner work to resolve trauma, you go from being pointed towards the membrane of death towards being in alignment with heaven. That's what I wanted to get to. The curved surfaces, just like hell, but the central core timeline is literally heaven. And I want to read what I say about it. Okay. Heaven is the central core timeline or persona, going infinitely in both directions, both where you are coming from and where you are going to. It's the perfect tone of endlessness, frictionless movement of energy on its journey. No entropy. This is what infinity is, and this is what love is, and this is what you are. Your energy flowing on your journey. As opposed to the interstices, where this is who you are not. That is energy that is stuck on its journey and preventing the proper flow of all of the rest of these personality characteristics from going where they need to go. And then we go into how is this energy resolved? So, of course, I don't totally agree with everything that I wrote from 13 years ago, but the concept of it still stands, which is that you need to do your own body of sending these genetic tendencies for being influenced by the putis or the demonic realm, maintain your own energy boundaries. That's not actually enough to fix the whole entire system. But wait. So what I don't agree with is the sense of starving them out. And this is why I've had to escalate what I do. Because in my notes from 13 years ago, I'm like, I got a great idea. Don't give them any food, starve them out. It's like having squatters or something like that. Like, just don't let them have any money or any food. Eventually, they'll have to leave the house, right? But what happened when we started to really effectively starve out the putis who are on the membranes of death is they escalated the level of technological disruption they started to use to reduce love in the world. So it's very facile to be like, be unchoppable. Be a love vibration between yourself and the sun that can simply never be eaten. That is such a strong note between you that nothing can break in on it, right? Like that's very easier said than done because the putis, like as you've got like this beautiful connection between yourself and the world of pure light, and you're like, I'm sun is me. There's this other thing that's creating 5G. Nanotechnology, satellites, so many other molecular biochemical disruptors to try to end that rapport. And it's not enough to just, I want to say like fight a defensive war or, do just in a game like soccer or something like that, just defense. Just defense, just being like, I'm just going to shield my energy. Don't steal my energy. Got to have offense. And I don't even play games or do any of these types of things. Using the words, hopefully, that you can connect with. But no, if you simply are like, we're just going to be like the Murian, we're not going to confront anything or anyone. We're just going to shield ourselves and be like, love. And then these guys aren't going to steal from us. And these guys are going to get super, super duper hungry, which is what has happened to them. And then what they did was they didn't just fade off into oblivion. They're like, we're losing our energy and we're really hungry. We're not going to face resolution and responsibility for all the really bad SHIT we've done. I've got an idea. Let's escalate. And that's what they did. They escalated. They escalated their deployments of satellite infrastructure, negative frequencies, and even internally in your body, the nanotechnology and other things that bring down or reduce the amount of love that you can emit or receive. Like nanotechnology is 100% just anti-love zapping in the body. And that's the purpose for it. Everything else is totally subservient to that original purpose. It's an anti-love, anti-Christ network, okay? So if you think like 13 years ago, we're gonna be like, all right, everyone, let's starve out those pooties. We're all gonna go on a pilgrimage. We're all gonna grow and evolve. And you did a good job of growing and evolving. And they're all like, huh, we're the pooties. We're getting pretty hungry. We're not just gonna get starved out of existence. We're gonna escalate and make your lives harder. So this is the problem. So I'm in conflict with my notes from many years ago and what I told you to do. You should still do that, but the conflict is me. I need to do more. I need to be a lot more offensive or aggressive or confrontational with these types of energies in reducing them and reducing their capacity to hack a system. So I now see attempts to hack a system as an overt assault, not as something that has to be endured. So please know you don't just have to continually shield. Let's take this to its ad ridiculousness, like to infinitum, like to the ultimate explanation of what it can be. Let's say you're like this, I'm going to be non-offensive, non-aggressive, and non-violent. That guy's just going to send tons and tons of arrows at me, and I'm just going to create a shield. But the arrows got through. So I made a thicker shield, but then he made bigger arrows, and the arrows got through. So then I made a shield that was a mile thick, but then he made an arrow that was 2 miles thick, and the arrows got through. So then I made a shield that was 10 miles thick, and he made a arrow that was 20 miles thick. And then I made a shield that was 100 million, billion, gazillion, quadrillion miles thick, and then he made an arrow that was 100 million, quadrillion miles thick that could get through to there. And then what ended up happening was I spent all of my money on making these shields that are 100 quadrillion million miles thick, and I had no money to do anything else with, no energy to do anything else with. And also, he kept on, or they, whatever, the assaulter kept on making more giant arrows to assault me. Can't just play a game or win a war by only shielding yourself. It's besiegement, and it's only half of what you need to do. So you need to protect your energy force fields and your energetic resources from being stolen or diluted or pirated or hijacked in some way. But then also, you have to go out hunting after these guys. But I also understand if you guys aren't at a black belt level, and even you in the advanced jazz band might not be ready to do this, please know that I am ready to do this, and I do this all the time. So that is what I do. I act preventatively, and it's very, very truthful that you do not have, because of precog, but then also just generally, you don't have to wait for them to attack. Like, that guy's going to attack me. I think that I will stop him from doing that. And I also, you can anticipate an attack that's going to happen to you. You can anticipate something bad that's going to happen through the creation of a process or a technology. You're like, person A might not be evil, but they're creating a robot that is evil. You could be like, I am getting rid of person A because they're going to create a very evil robot, and we can't have that here in the world. So you don't have to be just like, person A is evil and they're going to, no, they're not. Person A is stupid and they're going to create an evil robot, and I have to let stupid person A make this evil robot, and then I have to make some anti-evil robot, whatever, protective hardware or something like that, and they clean up their mess. You're actually not required to do that. Do you understand that you are not required to be the cleanup service or merely responsive to the insanity that comes to some people from the guys on the membrane of death? Because the guys on the membrane of death don't just sit there and shut up like good people. They are loud idiots, and they talk to people here in life and give them some of the worst ideas, like to build an evil robot, or to build nanotechnology, or to build satellites to destroy us and cut us all off from true love. And for any rapists or non-viable presences that are watching this, like, they actually, I think I kind of sense what's going on with them, have a lot of jealousy. They're like, oh, you're not going to ascend. I'm not going to ascend. They say it like this. If I'm not going to ascend, nobody's going to ascend. If I'm not having a good time, nobody's having a good time. If I'm not feeling love, you're not going to feel love either. So, of course, that's very, very erroneous and not what's supposed to happen. And what we're supposed to do is to have very strong energetic boundaries and also stratification of resources, where those who are heading towards acceleration and organization and light and intelligence separate out. Like one of those science experiments in school, maybe you did specific density, salad dressing. You got like the vinegar, the oil, all the way up to the least dense levels over there. So you're thinking of a stratification where if you're moving towards acceleration, you're going to move into a completely different level of reality than those who are de-evolving. they should go into these levels of density, and you should not interact with them. You should not shake up the salad dressing and have that whole thing emulsified into one big giant mush, which is what 5G did. And now what we are trying very, very hard is to turn off 5G, turn off the end results of the amalgamation of energies, separate out the energies, and restore your energies to yourself, restore your momentum to yourself, defrost your pot roast of trauma, because that was all very traumatic, and then very, very quickly get the stuff that doesn't belong here in the system out of the system, to purge the system of stuff that's not supposed to be here. And that includes the stuff that's on the membrane of death. And the resolution of it does not look like some type of a kumbaya, love fest, friendship festival, or any level of acceptance or celebration of the stuff that is on the membrane of death. That's really a very corrosive aspect of the Christian community. People who are good, people who want to think about forgiveness of their rapist, who want to think about hugging them at the end of time, be like, get on in here on the bullet train of infinity, come on in and be with all of us. And it's not only not appropriate, not only can it not happen, like that person has incurred a huge debt. So, do you understand? Like, there's not a way for you to be like a generous victim. Like, although you hurt me greatly, get on board, you crazy kid. Come on, we're heading to infinity. You can't do that, as that other person owes a quadratini $1,000,000. They can't buy a ticket. They can't be there. And so, what if you're a person who has raped and you're watching this video and you're like, according to Aurora, this wild video maker here, I'm just now finding out that I owe an energetic debt. I'm never going to be on the bullet train of infinity. I owe a quadratini million. What should happen to that person? What should they do? There's not a way for them to die. So this is the thing that I was trying to say. How can I articulate this in class? Because it brings it out of the abstraction and into your community. There are some community members, when you look at those people, you recognize they will not be in existence in the future. Their consciousnesses will not go on. Their awareness or the momentum of their life will not go on. And even as I'm saying that, I'm like, oh, this is so ripe for misinterpretation, misjudgment, all those things. I feel like I put myself out on a limb a lot by telling you these things. I hope that you can get the nutrition and the meat and potatoes beyond the words, which are so distorted. But my information comes from the highest viewpoint where you're actually literate and you can see that some consciousnesses must be disposed of, cannot proliferate forward, and were never meant to be here in the first place. Okay, I think that that's pretty good. Let me get to all of your questions and comments. All right. There are no more questions and comments. I want to make sure if there's any more questions and comments that you have an opportunity to say them and talk all that, because I think it's just probably some of the most important stuff to be able to share with you. Okay. And I will go through here and make sure that I got all of that. Yep. I said, love does not mean hug a demon. And also, well, because there's a little bit of some sympathy. Like I talk about the character from Lord of the Rings, who's Gollum, who was once a beautiful hobbit who got horribly distorted through their use of dark magic. You have to understand, if we're using Gollum as a fictional example, that Gollum would have had problems to begin with. You know, Gollum is not just like some regular happy hobbit who is walking around living his best life as a hobbit. He's got some inner crapola problems. And then when he got that ring and started going into dark magic, sorry, flies in my ring here, the ring exacerbated and distorted the darkness in him and eradicated the decency and goodness in him. So the answer is not like, oh, take away the evil dark magic ring from Gollum and then should we hug him, shower him with love, get this guy feeling good again? What do you do? What do you do with God? Like, is he redeemable? The answer is no, he is not redeemable. And it's a facile comfort story to think that he is. And Christianity, you know, as I criticize it. Sorry, I'm not wearing my cross. I was in a hot springs and my cross, like, the catch melted. I still have it. I can fix it. But don't think that I'm against Christianity. But the aspect of Christianity that I'm critical of are these aspects of total forgiveness and the possibility of redemption, when energetically that is not truthful. And it is a comfort story because you, as a survivor of many different types of trauma, might want to think, oh, yeah, like that person is a bad person, but they'll get fixed up somehow. And then whatever, I'll see them. Also, like, what if it's a family member? Like, what if you have a family member, like your mom, your dad, or someone like that, who did bad things to you, and like they have incurred a debt that's more of a debt than can ever be repaid? Like, they're not going to be with you on the bullet train of infinity, which is your heaven timeline of nonfiction and total bliss. And I know that that's against a lot of the human teachings, like many religions, Mormonism and other things like that, emphasize that in heaven, all of your people will be there. Your mom, your dad, your cousins, your uncles, your everybody. They're all going to be there. It's very important to think of them in that way. But that is a very flawed proposal, because you cannot have some of these family members if they have incurred an enormous debt. So you have to, so it's a very anthropomorphic, again, comfort story of what people can expect, but it is not energetically truthful. Thank you for that. Thank you so much, because someone just gave me those words. I am giving you very, very difficult and very advanced energetic truth, which means that in many ways you have to let go of your comfort stories. And I'm challenging you a little bit on these things, but it does not mean that I'm evil. And it does not mean that I'm encouraging you for wanton destruction or destruction of the wrong things, because that's one of the worst proposals. So you can't just say wholeheartedly, everything is great, everything is God, we're not getting rid of anything. And then you also can't say, I'm going to randomly or arbitrarily decide the things that I'm going to get rid of and the things that I'm going to keep. Like, what are my standards here? You have to have the correct standards, which are those that are from the mind of the stars, the stellarium, and beyond, mind of divinity. So those levels of pure light and pure consciousness should inform you in your individual experience as an outgrowth of the sun as to what's keeper and what's garbage, what should be here and what should not be here, what reality structure should be here, what reality structure should not be here. An energetic weather report, I should have started off with that too, but we really are moving into a new level where it's a lot less focus on cleaning up garbage and responding away from the things that are trying to like pull us off of our track, and a lot more towards the positive community building impulses, where you're not just trying to like stick your fingers in your ears against bad music, but you're actually starting to connect with other musicians to learn and grow. And when I say that, that's the last thing that I was talking about, where like you're here in this world that is a materialistic world as a reflection or a distillation of the larger expansive truth of the world of pure abstraction. Yes, this world does not contain all of the truth of the larger expansive world, but like you're here to learn and grow. Been almost impossible to learn and grow with the pooties, with the bad musicians. And we are finally starting to learn into this, come into this level where you will finally have an opportunity to learn. So please know that, like, I am kind of starting to tell you, you don't have to be inflamed anymore in the body. Like, you stub your toe and then you have to give your toe the message, like, we got the message. We're like, we hear you're unhappy. We're fixing things. I'm giving you the message. Like, we know that this toe has been stubbed, and we know that you're suffering. This is not like whatever, a cosmic we or whatever. Just like it is evident that you're suffering, and the situation is being addressed. And the situation is being addressed as like a larger purging of reality, probably beyond what you are capable of doing as an individual. So it was important for me to communicate that. Your efforts to shield yourself as an individual, good. Your efforts to purge your own self on a pilgrimage, doing deep cardio and removing your emotional frozen traumas, good. But, and also you needed more systemic help and support at cleaning up the entire system on a larger level. And I've really been doing that over the several past years, and we're finally getting to someplace with it. Yes, you're not just going to have continual re-emittance or, re-emergence, like a rash that occasionally goes away and then gets born again. You're going to have a real resolution, completion on all of these things. You're going to have a completion on the horrible, mistaken, monstrous people who did bad time experiments on Mars and then infiltrated into the human genome. You're finally going to have your real world and your real body and your real planet back. But it won't be exactly the same as Atlantis. And then we do have to address the destruction or dishevelment of the Christ consciousness network too. So it won't just be like magical, like snap your fingers, be like, it was all a dream. Like, I want to make sure that you know that this is not a ephemeral dream that will just evaporate and then all of a sudden you're back where you were and everything is fine. I mean, that's another comfort story. No, you must look at, because some people think like, oh, it's just a simulation here. It doesn't matter. It's not real. Suffering isn't real. Suffering is real. Suffering is real. The frozen pot roasts of trauma have been genuinely disruptive to the fabric of space-time. And when you clear that stuck energy and you are then once again able to move forward in freedom and in emotional freedom, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden like you revert to the world that you were in before all this happened. Like, you will really have to construct something new. You will really have to take the best of what you had before this and then also come up with and generate new ways. And that it will be very joyous. You will want to do that. Okay, so good. If there's any more questions or comments, please speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm being like so silly. No, please share if there's anything that you'd like to say or know about from this. And I'm always like efforting, you can tell, to be able to say things in the clearest way that I possibly can so that it's not going to be not only misinterpreted by you, but hijacked or misapplied in the future. But I think that those concerns about things being hijacked and misapplied are less and less of an issue because like you're the advanced students and the good people who are ready to listen to this and not the garbage to be discarded. Good. All right. So I'm definitely tired and thirsty, and we'll wrap things up. Thank you so much. Joyce says, thank you, Professor. I love you, and Shiki too. Thank you. Love received. We're very, very grateful. Thank you for being a beautiful student and really mean it. Thank you so much for everybody for loving on Shiki. She's right here in her dog bed. Let's end on hugging Shiki because she loves the attention. She loves the uplift. Shiki's totally, she's a star. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for all of the cheeky love and positive intentions for her. We really appreciate it. And it does have a very positive impact on her. Okay, good. Thank you. Have a beautiful night, everyone. Thank you so much.